Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey podcast. I'm joined today and joined as always by the ever sick, the ever having come down with the flu or whatever that sort of thing he has, Mr. Jason, seemingly getting a little better, Johnston Yellen.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that the last week saw us do more podcast activity in 7 days than we have all year long. It has been an insanely busy 7 days, and I have not had the vocal cords or the nose or the brain power to really succeed here. But we have plowed through in the greatest traditions.
Yeah, the latter bit of that list was the most noticeable. Just the lack of brain power during the
I don't know if you're being
these
facetious
interviews.
or not, but it's 100% right. I really...
Is that true? Do you feel
texted
that way?
I texted you one of the days and I was like, my brain is like Jell-O. Which, hashtag humble brag, it's not normally like Jell-O. But yeah, like keeping two disparate thoughts in my head at the same time. I became very singular in my focus. Yeah, I didn't like it.
Oh, see, when you were talking about your brain being like Jell-O, I thought you were trying to entice me like they did on Temple of Doom with the chilled monkey brains. I thought that
I thought you were going that direction.
Did you think that?
I did. I did think... you can't make a reference to brains and not thinking about Temple of Doom. It's iconic.
So, have you seen the new trailer for the new...
Listen.
Yeah?
Listen.
Go ahead.
Listen.
Yeah.
You sent it to me in one of my weakest moments. And,
right.
And I saw that it was delivered and I didn't. And over the weekend I thought, oh, Joshua sent that to me. I need to be watching that.
Yeah.
And I still haven't watched it.
What?
So I haven't seen it yet. But I will. Here's the thing. We had this conversation when you and Haida were down for Thanksgiving and we were talking about a book that Tamara got me. You only get to watch that trailer for the first time one time. You only get to, crack that book for the first time one time, right? And I just wanted to be right for it. Do you remember the Star Wars trailer?
Yeah.
When, and this does contain spoiler alerts, when Harrison Ford says to Chewie, I like how I used the actor's name for one of them and the character's name for the other.
Well, because one of them...
Han Solo says to Chewbacca, Chewie, we're home. Do you remember that trailer that had that moment in it?
Oh, yeah.
And I think most people of a certain age got a wee bit verklempt. You only get to experience that one time. And if I tuned into that trailer not feeling great, I would have wasted that first moment. So that is exactly where I am with the new Indiana Jones trailer. I'm waiting until I'm right to see it for the first time.
What a unique way to say you totally dropped the ball and forgot to watch the fucking trailer.
No, that's the problem, though. I wish I had simply forgotten. I wish it was out of my head. I wish I didn't think about it once an hour for, 5 days.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Hey, I don't know if... we will get to whiskey talk and we'll get...
Did you see it?
The trailer?
Yeah.
Did I see it? Did I see it at least 4 times? So this is what I did.
Is that a good trailer?
This is... I'm not going to give any spoiler alerts in case there's some crazy people like you who receive said trailer and choose not to watch it.
Don't make me cough. Don't make me start coughing.
But I've watched it both on a television twice.
Ooh, okay, Granddad.
On a computer screen once.
Oh, okay, Granddad.
And then on my iPhone once as well.
Hey, welcome, young person.
Because I want to see if there's, little hidden things in there. And I'm not a very smart man, so I don't think I've caught any hidden things. But maybe I've got to go to my larger television screen to really view it.
You remember the laser disc machines?
Oh, yeah.
Where, like, they came with their own screen, and it was like the origin of the big screen for home entertainment. And they were maybe curved.
That is how I first watched and started to appreciate Michael Jackson's Thriller on a Laserdisc machine. Yep.
Just showed that to the boys. I think it was probably actually Zevi. Just round about Halloween time.
All right.
Maybe just a wee hair after Halloween time. And obviously you and I and many, many of our listeners remember that Thriller video, the original, the uncut.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a portion where he's sitting there through the first few minutes and he's just looking at us like, when does the music start? Right, I'm here for this is a music video. I'm here for the music. And I was like, oh no, this is something very different.
Yeah.
And then once we kind of finished it, and he was kind of like, yeah, it was all right. Like, he loved the music, absolutely loved the music.
Oh, yeah.
The whole experience, he could have done without. And so he said, oh, then you have to see Bad. And so we showed him the music video for Bad, which takes really poor theatrics to a whole new level.
Oh, does it?
And it just goes on and on. And the thing he liked about the much more extended Bad video is that he had seen Weird Al Yankovic.
Yankovic? Weird Al Yankovic.
I haven't seen the biography. I don't yet know how to pronounce his name. And and he had seen the video for Fat by Weird Al.
So he saw that first?
Yeah. And so he was able to kind of piece together what he'd seen from Weird Al onto what he was now seeing in the original Bad, Michael Jackson. And he got a chuckle out of that. And so he wasn't just sitting there bored out his brains at all the back and forth. And again, he liked the song, liked the music, liked the dancing. But yeah, it was the Weird Al connection that really made the video for him.
When that Weird Al video came out, I was somewhere in high school. I don't know if it was sophomore, junior, I don't remember the year. I just remember how big that was. Like coming
Pun intended.
Pun not intended. That was great. But coming into school the day after the video had premiered, and was it sophomore year? Whatever year it was, I was going into my science fiction writing class. I was taking a science fiction course, Fun. And the class simply couldn't get started because we were all talking about Weird Al Yankovic Fat and like, you ain't fat, man. You ain't nothing. Oh, Jason. So
and just think, none of you had seen that on your phones. None of you had seen that on your computers. You had all only seen it on your televisions.
I saw it on my 24-inch Zenith television. It probably weighed 700 pounds.
Wow. 24 inches. You Americans, you've always had your large TVs. 24 inches. Good grief. We could only dream of 24 inches in Scotland.
Speaking of inches.
Yes, sir.
Something happened last night. Go easy, Jason.
I'm just looking at my watch. I'm not doing anything.
Something happened last night that hasn't happened for a year. At least. What do you think that is?
You finished a book.
No. Come on, don't be silly. Don't be daft. No, it snowed last night.
Hey, it hadn't snowed for a year?
About a year. Maybe it snowed in January, February. I don't know. I'm just saying it's been a year since it's been winter, and last night we had our first snow.
Spoiler alert, it's not winter.
Go easy.
It's just not winter.
It's been a while, and it was so beautiful to see. I'm so excited. I just look outside, and that song, something, something, winter wonderland, something, 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 something.
So you don't remember how long ago it snowed. Mm-hmm. You incorrectly state that it's winter, and then you sing a song that you don't know the lyrics for. This is primo podcasting. Primo.
Something. I said no, man.
And I'm the asshole for not watching the trailer for Indiana Jones. See, now you've got me excited again. I'm going to start coughing.
But
how many inches since that was your transition? How many inches?
We got about 1.5 inches, 2 inches on the grass, and then it took a while, but it started sticking to pavement as well. But I would say maybe 1/2 inch, 1/4 to 1/2 inch on the pavement.
So not what our brothers and sisters and cousins are getting in California right now, or Colorado right now.
They're getting walloped.
Gosh, there were some places that were getting 1 inch of snow an hour for 48 hours.
By my math, that's 48 inches. See that?
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, there's a lot of snow out there. We're meant to be getting it later this week. And you know us in Virginia. If it threatens snow, we will shut down. It will all be over. Stores will close. Schools will close. Buses will stop running. It'll just be over.
You guys just don't know what to do.
None at all.
Yeah.
And for us in the town of Bridgewater, we've got a snowplow. We might even have two. Sorry, I'm bragging again. And they run constantly, but they stop right at the end of the town line. And so our town, clear. None of our schools are inside the town line.
Do the Mennonites take advantage of that? Or do they help at all?
No, they're out in their horse and buggies in the snow. Their horse is going through easy enough. Yeah, they don't put a plow on the front. I'll be honest.
They don't just put a plow like in the horses' mouths to.
They don't just hang it from its chest. Anyway.
Yeah, they're like, yay or nay. Can I do this? They said nay. Both horses said nay.
With that said, both horses. How many nights do you know that are being led by two horses?
Do they not have two?
Oh my lord! Oh my lord! Oh my gosh! You're hanging out with a different breed of Mennonite, my friend. 2-horse buggy? Gosh!
All right.
Oof.
Listen, I want us to get down to brass tacks for a moment here, unless you wanted to go down more tangential Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Mennonite paths.
I'm just shocked you think Mennonites have 2 horses.
Why wouldn't they have 2 horses? They don't have cars. What are they going to do? All that money you'd spend on a car, just get a second horse.
Do you know what's really shocking in this world? And I only found this out somewhat recently.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that, how we measure the output of cars in horsepower?
Yeah.
You know that 1 horsepower car is not equal to 1 horsepower horse?
Explain.
And that's all I've got. It was just my world fell apart when it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. So if someone's got a car that's 250 horsepower, it's not like it's being led by 250 horses.
Huh.
Right?
Is it, okay, but the interesting thing is, and this goes to show that you have been sick, that you didn't ask any questions as to, well, why, or what are the differences, or fucking.
Do you know what? I couldn't even tell you where I heard it. I couldn't even tell you the source of it.
I think it was in your dreams.
I was probably lying in bed feeling sorry for myself, and I heard it or I read it, and it really shook my world. And then I just moved on with the rest of my life.
See, I had wondered if the horsepower is different from car to car. If you have like a Fiat or something, like, do you measure that in Shetland pony power? If you have a Ford F-150, is that what are those ones that with the hairy feet? Clydesdales?
I'm trying so hard not to wheeze in today's episode. I wheezed over the weekend, and Kai looked at me and he was just like, Well, that was an old man wheeze. So, yes, son, I am an old man wheezing in the kitchen. Anyway, no, it was good. Shetland Ponies, I like that. That's good. All right. Why are we here, Joshua? What are we here? What are these brass tacks that you want us to get down to?
What I'm excited about, Jason, what the brass tacks are. What the brass tacks... That's not a way to construct a sentence. What I'm excited about, Jason, is the fact that this episode highlights our very own Jess bringing another conversation to the podcast, and this time it's with Mariella Romano, and she's a global brand ambassador for Isle of Arran Distillery.
Okay.
And it was a damn...
Is it Isle of Arran Distillers?
Is it Isle of Arran Distillers? Because
now they've got Lochranza in the north and Lag in the south.
That's right. And they refer to Arran, what we would just call the Arran Distillery, as Lochranza. So I appreciate you correcting me. It's Isle of Arran Distillers.
Oh, my pleasure, sir. My pleasure.
And so what we'll hear Jess and Mariella talking a bit about the Lochranza Distillery, what we've always called the Arran Distillery. But they talk a bit about Lag, and if I'm being honest, it was one of the more enjoyable conversations to listen to, because they're popping in and out of some of the geekiest whiskey conversations, and then talking a bit about baking and how to pair your whiskeys with cheese or with panettone or what have you. And then you get to hear Mariella properly pronounce Italian wine casks, which
that's fun.
Yeah, especially given how poorly you and I have been pronouncing these casks, and obviously Jess as well.
Wow, you're just...
Everybody.
You're driving that bus forward, you're backing it up, you're driving it forward again. Everybody's guilty.
Every non-Italian.
No, Mariella. She's got it going on. She's the bee's knees.
She was absolutely fantastic and a joy to listen to. The conversation was great. Unless you have anything to add, I figured we'd just hand it over to Jess.
I'm eager to listen.
All right, here we go. Over to Jess and Mariella Romano.
Today we are coming sort of live-ish, face-to-face. We are in Glasgow, and I am joined today by the very lovely Mariella. Mariella, say hello.
Hello.
See, easy enough. And we are recording face-to-face, which I'm finding particularly weird.
I mean, can I just say, I mean, it is a bit weird because we normally talk face-to-face, but we just never talk face-to-face while holding a microphone in front of our faces, so... Yeah, that's unusual.
That's a bit intense, isn't it? So we are here for a bit of a chat. I should probably introduce you to maybe our listeners who have not yet had the pleasure of coming across you. We are recording from a venue in Glasgow with some real background noise. So if you hear that, please excuse us. So Mariella, would you like to tell us who you work for and what your designated title is?
Absolutely. So... First of all, lovely to meet you all, even if we are not really meeting, but thank you for tuning in and listening to this. And my name is Mariella, and I work for Isle of Arran Distillers as a global brand. As a global brand ambassador and brand manager, which essentially means I travel the world and tell people about the beautiful whiskies that we produce on the Isle of Arran. And that brand manager title really just means that I do a little bit of marketing stuff on the side. COVID, really. I mean, during lockdown, I wasn't traveling much, as you can imagine.
Yeah,
I was traveling...
similar feeling.
Yeah, traveling on Zoom, virtually, to a lot of places that I wanted to visit in person. But so I just helped out the marketing team a little bit. But as, you know, with any other small or any other independent whiskey company, you might have heard this from other employees. We just kind of do a little bit of everything. You know, your role stretches in a lot of different directions, which I actually enjoy. So I don't just travel the world and do tastings and shows. I do a lot of other silly things on the side.
Yeah,
so
we can get into all of these things. I don't know if you've heard of us at One Nation Under Whiskey, but we also, on the side, bottle whiskies occasionally. So I know the feeling of it being a bit of everything in-house. I was thinking maybe we could start down this path of introducing you. Obviously, there's a really obvious and lazy intro we could do here, because I can tell, like me, you are not a native Glaswegian, and yet here we are both living in Glasgow. But maybe we should start with the whiskey, and you could tell me briefly, maybe how you ended up at Arran, because I know you've done lots of different corners of the whiskey industry.
Yeah, no, briefly is the right word to use, because I don't know if you can tell from my name or from my accent, but I am Italian, and yes, I could talk for hours. So briefly and slowly, is that what we said?
Yeah,
briefly,
you're on the right podcast.
Slowly.
We've got like 7 or 8 hours to fill. So.
You're just lucky at home you can't see my hand gestures right now. Also, well done, well played, Jess, for giving me a microphone, because I have one hand down, so I can only move the other hand around. So.
One day we'll invent a podcasting feature that, like subtitles, you can also do gesturing.
Yeah.
As the
Speak with gestures. But no, I'll keep it brief. I moved to the UK almost 10 years ago now, actually. Wow. And I just come from a very tiny little town in southern Italy, an hour away from Napoli. Maybe some of you are familiar with Sorrento, the Amalfi Coast, a beautiful postcard-looking place.
Very pretty.
Absolutely stunning. But I come from like a little bit outside of that, so very quiet little town. And I was very bored, and I wanted a bit more, from life. So I thought, why don't I just move to like a town that is a little bit bigger? So I moved to London, because why not? You're in your 20s.
So for the listeners, they may never have heard of London. It's a slightly bigger town in the south of England, which is south of Glasgow.
In the UK. Thank you very
in
much.
the UK, as it's known.
Anyway, jokes aside, I moved to London, just like many other immigrants. I started working in a bar, in a hotel bar, and I tried whiskey for the first time. My Brazilian manager at the time said, why don't you try one of those? And I tried a Lagavulin 16.
Good, strong starting point.
Which stole my heart and my brain and like everything else. So I quickly became obsessed, and I thought, this is the best thing I've ever tried in my life. I want to know everything about everything. So I started reading blogs and books, and then I started looking for jobs. Really just sending an email out. I remember this, it was like December 2013. I sent an email out. I put a list of all these locations around London of whiskey shops, whiskey bars, anything that had to do with whiskey. And I just sent the same email to everybody saying, hi, I'm Mariella, I'm ignorant, but I'm keen to learn. Give me a job. I want to work in whiskey. And I was very lucky. I got offered a part-time job at the Whiskey Exchange in Vinopolis at the time.
Oh, nice.
Which doesn't exist anymore now, but possibly the best team I've ever worked with. The guys are just the loveliest. Literally my mentors. I've learned everything from them. So I worked there for a while. Then I worked for the Scotchman Whisky Society, where we are right now, but not this one in Glasgow, the one down in London. And also worked briefly for the Whisky Lounge, helping their events. I went back to Elixir Distillers, worked as a brand ambassador. And then I was like, it's time. Scotland is calling. I need to move up. I need to see what this Scottish life is all about. I also really was keen to work for a company, for a distillery, in itself. So I worked with Tatsuya at the Highlander Inn for a couple of months before moving to Glasgow. And now it's been almost 4 years that I worked for Arran Distillers, and possibly the best job I've ever had. People are super, super lovely, and the whiskey is delicious, and I am still adapting to the Scottish lifestyle.
Well, now that you're living in a small village of Glasgow, yeah.
Yeah, a smaller village of...
I'm very impressed that we haven't lost you to the Isle of Arran, actually. I think...
I know.
I know you spend a lot of time there, so sometimes I feel like you've got, 1 foot either side of the water.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm very glad that that's actually the way, because I live in Glasgow. Yes, I travel around the world, but rest assured, I do try to go to Arran at least 2-3 times a month. This time of the year is a little bit difficult because lots of festivals, bad weather.
Weather in Scotland? What?
I know, bad weather and ferries. Oof, not the best combo. But I try to go to Arran, and I go on holiday at least 2 times a year, either with my family or with my boyfriend, just because it's a stunning little island. It's just absolutely beautiful, and it's got everything. It's got mountains, it's got seals, it's got deer, squirrels, eagles, burns, waterfalls, coastline, whatever you want. Amazing like restaurants, amazing bars. It's just a little dream of an island.
For those of you listening, she's not actually being paid by the Arran Tourism Board on commission, or maybe you are.
No,
but I know for real what you just said there has made a lot of our listeners very jealous. First of all, because you said you're going on at least 2 holidays a year, so that's nice. But also, you've really done a lovely job of selling there Arran, and what an incredible place it is to have a form of employment.
I think it's my responsibility to sell Arran, the island, as well as Arran, like, you know, like the single malt whiskies and lag now as well, just because you need to come see us, guys. It's not too far away. If you're in Glasgow, all you need is 24 hours, really. Just
give or
come
take
and see
some
us.
ferries and some weather.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. But yeah. Like, it's very easy to get to Arran if the weather is nice.
If you've made it as far as the small village of Glasgow, I'm sure you can manage Arran. I have to admit, at the point of this going on wax, as we say in the industry, I still have never made it to Arran. But that's because of something that happened in the last 2 years that made all of us live in our houses. Because you and I were planning a little group for our my whiskey club here in Glasgow for us to do a little tour and a little visit to the distilleries. And then for some reason we all lived in our houses for 2 years. So I've still not been. That's a personal sore point that I'm looking to rectify. Probably not this winter, but yeah, definitely very soon.
Next year, it will happen. I would love to take you around. I mean, we talked about it like so much, but I would love to next year.
Regular listeners of the podcast will know that I share a birthday with Arran or Lochranza Distillery, so I feel like I have a personal connection, even without setting foot on the island. So that's really exciting to me. So yeah, we should definitely not postpone this tour anymore.
Just wait for that episode. Wait for the episode that is going to be recorded on the island.
Yeah, as you and I walk around pointing at things. It's a really great visual episode for a podcast.
We'll do it as we drive around so that you can like feel our excitement when we start pointing at seals. Like
that's a tradition. We have a section. Joshua drives people around at breakneck speed.
Don't worry.
In my head, it's like the Stig in Top Gear.
I can totally do that. Yes,
you should ask Ollie Tilton about the various incidents that have happened as we have, or they have recorded. So you'll have to listen to the Ollie episode to hear more on that. Okay, so now we know who you are. That's very nice. And your connection, how we've ended up at Arran. I thought maybe we should talk about the whiskey a little bit.
Sure.
And also because I know I want to talk about lag and the developments of Arran. So obviously, under your many hats that you wear in your job, you get to see the life of both distilleries, which I think is really cool. Is there something of the Arran range? Do you have like a particular favorite? That seems like an easy way to go into this. No favorites.
They're all my children, and I love them equally. Okay,
that is such a cop-out answer. Which is your favorite? All of them.
Just tell us which is your favorite. Which is my favorite? I mean, okay, let's be honest. Arran, I don't know actually. I think with Arran it's difficult because we are not maybe your usual 10 to 25-year-old, like, you know, whiskey range. When you go, oh, the 10 is this, the 12 is that, the 14 is that, the 18 is that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think every single product that we put out has, in my opinion, a story, a color, a season, like a feeling.
Yeah.
We do a lot of different things. Some may say we bottle even too many whiskeys, but you know, like our range stretches quite a lot. So we have the wine cask finishes, the 10, the quarter cask, the sherry cask, the 18, 21, etc. The Macri Moors could go on forever. If I was on a desert island and I could drink one Arran for the rest of my life that will just keep me entertained, it will be and happy. It will be the quarter cask. Why? I love Arran in bourbon cask. I think bourbon cask and like Arran spirit were just made for each other. It's just like it's burst of apples. Like it's a bit Calvados-y, so sweet, so beautiful. Like the vanilla, the orchard fruits. It just the texture is absolutely stunning. I just love it. Like it's a little bit creamy, delicious. And then a cask strength, which is a win. And it's available all year round. So it's not like one of those that I cry, you know, like about it. It's like I can find it whenever I want to. It's quite high. It's 56.2%. So if I leave a bottle open, like, you know, to drink over months, it still retain that nice, you know, texture. That's nice.
Freshness.
Richness, and freshness. So, yeah. If I was if I was having a session and I just wanted like a session whiskey, like, you know, the 10-year-old just wins over everything I think that we bottle. It's just, I think, in my honest opinion, is the best whiskey we put out there. So.
I do have to say that I think quite often when I'm recommending, I get asked a lot, you know, what do you recommend for a friend who's maybe starting to get into whiskey, or who you know, wants to know where do I think would be a good place to start a whiskey journey. I, like you, fell in love with mega peaty, in your face, shouty whiskey, but I appreciate that that's not everybody. So I regularly recommend Arran 10 because I think it's a great place to start. It's got plenty of bite because it's bottled at 46. I love it's got a really great texture to it. We often talk about being texture guys. I am not fully subscribed to the school of nose texture. Mainly because I think if you say that in Glasgow, you'd probably get sectioned. But the idea of it having plenty to go on, you know, like when I look for a good whiskey to recommend or to drink, or like you say, if you're having a few drams in an evening, I want something that's, you know, like it's going to hold your attention, but maybe you don't need to be really analytically thinking about what's in the glass.
100%.
So having something like a 10, it's got lots of lovely juiciness to it without it being too thin. It doesn't disappear from your palate really quickly. So it's a big favourite of mine.
But that's the joy now, is that we have 2 distilleries, right?
Yeah.
So now, like, I feel like, you know, I couldn't be happier. We have like Arran whiskies, the whole range, so many different, like, you know, varieties, different casks, peatiness levels and everything. And now Lag is just joined, you know, our portfolio in a way. So now I can talk about this beautiful non-peated whiskey that is the Arran 10, and also talk about the beautiful dirty West Coast, like, you know, style whiskey that is Lag. So it's...
You have seamlessly segued into, I was going to come
so
to
clever,
the difference.
So clever. How did she do that?
You did it. It wasn't me. But I was going to discuss, because obviously traditionally you mentioned at the top there, Arran had Macrimore and has done peated expressions. But now that we have Lag to play with and drink and discover as whiskey drinkers, is there going to be a separation between the 2 distilleries? Are we going to see peated from both, or a mixture?
Yeah, so this is always like a bit of a delicate question, of a delicate answer. But at Arran, like in Locranza Distillery, for the Arran single malt range, we are still bottling Macrimore, which would be the peated Arran single malt,
Right.
20 ppm, very mild, very gentle. We never really wanted to compete with Islay. It was like just an Arran with a little bit of like peat added to it, so very different style, okay, from what we're doing at Lag. And we're still bottling it, we're still putting it out there in the world, but we are not distilling peated spirit anymore.
Okay, so we'll see an end to, I guess, the Macrimore line at some point when you've run through the peated Locranza spirit.
So at this time, the company has not, like, you know, made a statement about what's officially going to happen to Macrimore, but I can tell you that it's not being produced at the moment.
Okay.
But I also don't want people to panic all of a sudden, because...
Yes, let's cause a panic spending. Rush to your local store and purchase.
Go, now, go get them.
It's a good job this isn't being recorded for us to play back in future. Mariella said.
Exactly, right? So do not panic, because we are still bottling Macrimore, and we will bottle it, you know, like for a while, for a bit. So there's no panic there. Lag, instead, is now like officially the heavily peated, you know, single malt coming out of the Isle of Arran. So Lag single malt from Lag Distillery. And we're completely, like, we're talking about a complete different style here.
Sure.
It's 50 ppm, the stuff that we're producing at the moment. And, you know, production is very different as well. Like, you know, faster distillation, you know, the barley, the everything is different. And it will come out as Lag single malt.
Right.
So the bottles, the labels, they don't look nothing like each other. There's literally 2 separate brands.
There's a real separation. I think if we put Arran and Lag bottles next to each other, you wouldn't be confused as to who was who. There's a very clear difference, but I think that's really interesting, talking about it will be more heavily peated than Macrimore is, because we just covered on Extra. We've had a couple of discussions about peating and barley, and about how there's a school of thought that maybe for a whole load of reasons, logistics and things like that, about maybe there was a shortage possibly coming of Islay peated malt.
Right.
So obviously you guys are not affected by that because you source your barley
Barley
elsewhere.
and peat come from Highlands, so it will it comes from a completely different place. I think with lag there is more a conversation about peat now. Especially because lag, it's our heavily peated product and barley varieties. So at the moment we're focusing on building stock for the future, of course, as you do. And we've been working with 50 ppm, barley, with peat and barley coming from essentially Aberdeenshire. But we're already trying to experiment a little bit on the side. So this year, for example, we've done a run for 2 weeks of local barley, literally from across the field at our lag distillery with the farmer that we know. Nice. And we asked to peat that barley up to 90 ppm with peat from the Highlands again, but with local barley from the island. So I think this is just the start of lag trying to source peat and barley from different places and trying to do something more experimental in the future.
That's really interesting, I think, because to me it seems like lag has got more of a focus on the ingredients. So we're talking here about a local barley changing the ppm levels, which I love hearing about. Whereas I feel like Lochranza, and historically the focus there has been on the maturation side. So Arran, as we've said, is famous for lots of different cask styles, but maybe not so much variation on barley. And I mean, obviously there's Macrimore for peated, but predominantly unpeated production.
I think it's something that got stuck with us as well, because obviously for the listeners that don't know, we're a relatively young company at the end of the day, not as young as every single distillery that is popping up in Scotland every
young
weekend.
But not young. You're the teenagers of the...
Exactly. And I put ourselves in that too, because we have a 3-year-old distillery too. So, I'm not saying there's something wrong. Actually, it's something beautiful to see the industry thrive so much. I love it. But Arran is a very different story, from the rest of the old guys, if I can say, out there, because we started in the 90s, and I think those casks, the finishing for us was a way to take a very young spirit, put it in very nice, interesting cask, and putting, our name out there, but also differentiating our spirit and, differentiating our products for customers out there. And I think the wine cask finishes of the cask, theme got stuck, with us as well. I might be wrong. I don't know if my colleagues and my boss agree with this, but
it's okay. We're CCing them in on all of this recording.
And this is how I lose my job. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a lovely run. Thank you. I think I much prefer to talk about our spirit now and focus on the 10 much more now than before. Even when I started 4 years ago, a lot of people were talking to me about the Marsala, the Côte Rôtie, the Madeira, the Amarone, the Port, the Sauterne, and I'm like, yeah, those are all wonderful. But have you tried our 10?
I think they were just asking you because there's a lot of Italian wine casks in there, and you're the only person who can pronounce them. First time I saw a Sassicaia cask, I was like, what? A what?
What?
It's a flattery. I think as well, when Arran and Lochranza were formed in the 90s, the industry was a very different place to what it is today. It was a much softer focus, I think. Now there's such pressure on a new distillery. When we come to lag in a minute, look how young we're putting things out, and I think consumers know a lot more and they have a lot more questions, whereas I feel like in the 90s it was almost a kind of novel approach. You can see it as well a bit when Bruichladdich started, we'll throw lots of things and see what sticks. Not so much a focus on having the ability to plan for the future. I've been at a distillery recently where we talked about production and, what was going to come next and that sort of thing. And they said, we're laying down our plans. We know at the moment what we think our release is going to look like at 25 and 30 years old, and they've only just got legal whiskey, so they're really planning ahead. I am sure conversations like that weren't happening on Arran in the 90s. I think it was we've just got some new exciting casks.
I think I feel so seen. I feel stuff to the heart.
But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's very interesting to see the progression of the industry. Now we are on a podcast recording, talking about some quite in-depth whiskey facts. You know, even 10, 12, 13 years ago when I was working in retail, people weren't necessarily coming and asking me questions like, oh, what's the latest STR release that you have? Like, what's the yeast in this release? You know, like, and now I'm not saying everybody's coming and asking that question, but there are definitely, when I'm pouring at whiskey festivals, people are asking things like that. Like, what type of casks have we used here? So I think it's an evolution of education. So I feel like Arran have had can we call them wild years? Maybe like the wild years where lessons were learnt and 100%. Then you've kind of regrouped yourselves. Because I think Arran, and I'm not just saying it because we're talking, I think it's a really slick operation. You know, like there's a lovely uniformity to what the range is doing. It's very recognizable. You've now got I love this packaging. This is so...
Thank you.
Not that it's about packaging, but I think, you know, this is really... really slick. So it helps people come to you so they have a more formed idea rather than being like, I had a cask and it was it one of the Italian ones? And then you're like, I'm Italian. So I wouldn't dare to be like, it was a Amarone cask. You know, like, so I think maybe that helps when people are asking.
Amarone cask?
Amarone cask?
Amarone cask, is that what you mean? I'm joking.
The Montepulciano cask.
The Montepulciano cask.
Just sounds so much better when you say it.
I'm joking. I love every pronunciation, especially of my name. I love when people get my name 100% wrong. But
I have the same problem, and I don't even have an Italian name.
For sure. Everything you said, like the conversations that I'm having now compared to the conversation I was having 4 years ago when I started are so different. Like now, I think like our range looks like a family and I love it. Like when you put
family,
our
that's a good
together,
word for it.
Like it looks like they belong together. Like we are one company. We reached that level of maturity. We celebrated our 25th anniversary a couple of years ago during COVID, but we still did. And they just, as you said, a continuity, but I think I love to shift the conversation from cask to spirit. We were talking about that before. I love to like have a little bit of new make with me when I do my tastings, just like give people a little bit of new make, see their shocked faces when they try it and they go, wow, the texture of the sweetness or like the apples or the pears, and I'm like, you see where this is coming from. And
that'll make Jason so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
he's such a fan of new make and pouring it in tastings and being able to set that kind of tone of, so here's kind of where the distillery is going to come from. Let's, you know, see if we can identify it through some of my favorite distilleries, you know, and all of the expressions they have, and, you know, whatever cask or age, or you can still find that thread of DNA of what makes that distillery. I think Kilchoman are a great example of that, and I love that, you know, wherever you go you always come back to this. That's what's setting these guys apart from, you know, a neighbor or somebody else who's got a 10-year-old which is in a mixture of bourbon and sherry and Amarone or whatever.
Absolutely. That's why I love it. It's like, yes, we can talk about all the other casks, but like I love to give people a bit of new make, talk about the 10 and just keep telling people, like, you know, we're still the same people. I know we changed, like, you know, look and everything, but still the same team, still the same passion, the same people. And all we're trying to do is just make good quality spirit and put it in good quality casks so that, you know, at the end of the day, hopefully you agree we do a good job. We have a good quality whiskey out there.
I think you're spoiling all the secrets of the industry in that bit there.
Guys, it's very basic, okay? Just make good spirit. Get good casks.
We'll get that bit's edited out because people won't come on the podcast now. They'll be like, Mariella's told everybody how to make good whiskey.
But what does it mean though? Good. That's the whole point. What does it mean? Good quality spirit, good quality cask. But we'll talk about it in another episode when I go toe to toe with every other ambassador and we just fight over what's the best good quality spirit out there. I'm joking.
That's going to be an excellent recorded episode of podcast while everyone's like growling at each other. We'll have to like film it and we can stream it too. And on top of it. Okay, so I was thinking we've done a little bit of Lochranza Arran. We've mentioned it a lot. So let's get to the latest exciting news coming from the island of Arran. Dun, 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 dun.
Lag. Da-da-da. It's our... I'm doing also my own...
You're doing all the sound effects, which is excellent.
Yeah. You can tell I don't get to do a lot of podcasts these days. It's like, yeah, no, she makes all the sound effects too. It comes with the package. Like Distillery, I am so lucky that I joined in 2019 because I got to see the final bit of construction of this distillery getting there as it was opened, for the first time. And now 3 years later, after everything that happened in the past 3 years, we can finally share a whiskey, which is absolutely amazing.
Do you feel like it's really been 3 years because of COVID? I feel like I have no concept of time anymore. Like there's the before indoor times and now. And so I feel like that was probably almost flawless planning on your behalf because you were like, well, we're making this thing. If you go to a distillery and they're in the process being like, well, this is year 1, this is year 2. Nobody has had the opportunity to come and bother you and be like, wow, well, only Jess, 2 years to go.
Obviously, we planned it. I mean, who do you think we are?
Are you guys responsible for this? Breaking news.
I just want to see that article going out tomorrow. Arran Distillers responsible for COVID.
COVID was bred somewhere off Broddick Bay, released to the world.
It was all done by our team on the island. They were like, no, we don't want to be bothered for a couple of years. Can you just please make something happen? And we're like, yeah, we'll look after that. Don't worry.
That's the ultimate sick note for work. I can't come in today for the next 2 years because we've invented a virus.
It has actually been the opposite, as you can imagine, because
of course.
When you open a distillery, the last thing you want is to
have nobody come visit you.
Nobody come and visit it, and visit the coffee shop and visit the whiskey shop. So no, it's been tough, obviously. We also are not really into. We decided not to bottle any gin or vodka or produce any other products outside of the whiskey. We're a little bit, I don't know if purist is the right word to use here, but we're just no, we're a whiskey distillery. Let's focus on whiskey. We did plant a lot of apple trees. We have around 2,000 apple trees at the moment.
That's a very unusual strategy for a new distillery. What could we do for our new distillery? We could release some other spirits. We could do a liqueur. We could sell really exciting merchandise. Or we could plant apple trees.
Yeah, we play the long game, okay?
I'm into it.
Let's just plant a lot of apple trees so that in the future maybe we could make something funky, a Calvados, a brandy, a peated.
That's very exciting.
A smoky apple
smoky Calvados. I'm all over that.
I don't know really what we can make, but our still men, our distillery manager is thinking about it as, the apples are growing. So I hope one day we can also talk about this other project when it comes to life. But yeah, so no gin, no vodka. We did bottle a few Arran heavily peated. We'd also have those, Arran single malt heavily peated bottles that were exclusive to Lag. But finally now we have Lag single malt to sell. So we just bottled and released our first inaugural releases. We decided to do 3 different batches of obviously 3-year-old whiskey, 50 ppm, Concerto barley variety. And the difference was batch number 1 is 36-month fully matured in first fill bourbon barrels. And then batch 2 and 3 instead are finished in firkins, 50 liters casks. Batch 2 is finished in first fill oloroso firkins, so obviously heavily peated and sherry, who doesn't like that? And then the third one is Rioja wine casks, which is funny. I actually found it one of the most complex and the most fascinating of the 3 because the tannins, the dryness and the bitterness actually works in a very magical, weird way with our peatiness. I really like it, but I recommend it to people that like their whiskeys with a bit of a punch. If you like a little challenge, So
if you're not in the market for a gentle dram.
Yeah, exactly.
You need something to recover from being outdoors in the great Scottish wilderness. Exactly. You need a reviver. Exactly. Yeah, I've been very lucky enough to try all 3 of those first releases. And I'm very excited about the smoky sherry, because I think that, in my head, that's definitely a flavour combination that ticks my boxes. And I'm really excited to see as well where they go. But the inaugural release, which is in the bourbon, was really delicious. And I do think, maybe younger spirit or younger whiskey, when it's got kind of smoky backbone, I think it develops a little bit quicker. So I think the smoke can be quite forgiving. This is not a criticism, but I think it's interesting to see what you do. So if you have something like a bourbon cask that you've got smoke in, there's not a lot of places to hide. So you are still looking at quite a naked spirit, which is obviously still developing at 3. But I'm really excited to see where you guys go with this, because it was really tasty.
That's why I loved batch 1. I didn't say anything about it because for me it's just lag, in my mind. That's lag, it was, as you said, it's like naked, they're just bourbon barrels, and it was a very good way to showcase the style, whiskey that we want to make, and it just, you get the sweetness obviously from the bourbon barrel, but like the peatiness, the heatheriness, the herbaceousness, that dirty, smoky style that we try to make, it's all there. So that it was a very good introduction. Because obviously the sherry cask on batch 2 will take over and make everything much more round, and all you want is like a little fireplace and a bit of like 70% dark chocolate, and then your life is like
the way you just
sorted.
reeled that off so quickly, as if you've been in the recesses of my mind. When I think about drinking whiskey in the winter, I'm not one of these people who. I was talking about this to someone the other day who was saying like, oh, it's great now we're getting around to colder temperatures and winter, then it's great we can finally start drinking peated whiskies. And I'm not one of those people. Like I think I probably would still be on a desert island or a sunny beach somewhere drinking some sort of like punchy peaty dram. Like to me it's not, I'm not seasonally bothered by it, but I can see why other people think, if you're somewhere nice and warm, then you want a gentle, light, bright, Speyside type dram instead. My excuse for that is it doesn't really get that hot in Scotland, so I don't have to think about what I would be drinking in 35 degrees. It's not a problem for me. The person that I was talking to said, when I'm on holiday and it's 50 degrees and I'm in the Middle East and it's really hot, then I want something refreshing. I was like, I'll tell you what I want when I get there.
I do feel like for me it's a thing. I don't know if maybe coming from Italy and coming from southern Italy, I miss seasons actually. That's I always say it. Like Scotland has seasons, but they're not as defined. They're not as, structured as like Italy. But I every time I talk about whiskeys, I talk about seasons because I think it actually makes a very big difference. I actually think Arran 10 is the whiskey for today. If you were in Scotland like today, or if you in the UK, like autumn and Arran 10, for example, are perfect. Lag, batch 2, sherry, then peat. There is something about, winter time when everything is, you want something nice and cozy and warm, because the weather is a little bit cold out there. I think it makes a difference. And Amarone, if you're in Italy and it's spring, that's how I get my family to drink whiskey. Just get the Italian one, get the Italian wine cask one, dilute it a little bit so they don't notice it's 50% ABV, and then just give it to them on a beautiful spring, like warm day outside. We're all eating with the family. I remember giving it to my brother and my mom and my dad, and for the first time, my mom and my dad looked at me and didn't just look in, with a pure face, disgust and hate. They actually understood that and they actually appreciated it. So time and place, guys. Time and place.
I've always said that I think context for whiskey is really important. For example, my non-drinking parents, my mum, it turns out, will drink one whiskey, but it happens to be like a Tomatin from 1966, which I obviously don't have a regular supply of.
How did she get to try that in the first place?
I was taking part in a tasting. It was a Gordon MacPhail tasting years ago, and they sent us. It was like just the holiest of holy lists of like. Old. I think the youngest one in the lineup was still significantly older than I was. But the reason I had applied to take part in the tastings was they did. There was a 1952 Mortlach in it, and Mortlach's one of my favourites. Wow. And again, I know I tell people such and such is my favourite all the time, but Mortlach is consistently in one of my favourites.
All I'm saying is thank you for inviting me to the next tastings you're going to get to. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, so what the Padcast listeners can't see is actually we're just playfully doling out Black Bowmore under here and putting Irn-Bru in it. So I didn't want to make people jealous. It goes really well with my tea cake. Tannock's tea cakes that we have here.
Tea
we should
cakes
see if we
and
could get
Bowmore.
sponsored. Tea cakes and Bowmore. Well, famously, I like to put stupid food together with expensive whiskies. But yeah, so that was how she had an opportunity to try something old, and she drank it and was like, oh, this is quite nice. I was like, of course you like the really old, expensive thing that I poured blind. I didn't tell her it was, not that I think that would have impressed her if I'd been like, she'd probably have been more annoyed that I'd wasted an expensive whiskey on someone who...
At least she tried it, and now she knows for a fact.
She knows when she's down Morrison's,
exactly. So.
Or insert any other supermarket brand for your international listenership.
Now you just need to tell her to go into bars and ask for it. Like wherever she goes, just go for can I please have a tomato in 1960?
The idea of sending my mother into any bars fills me with fear. Never mind one where she would go in and say a combination of words like that. Yeah.
Oh, another thing that I do that you mentioned as well is pairing. That's my way to trick people into.
Anybody who's seen your social medias, we love a social media, you always are making me hungry with your amazing concoctions of pairings, or making tiramisu with Arran liqueurs and cakes and
brownies, microwave chocolate brownies with new make, covered extra dark chocolate, imagine extra dark chocolate brownies with this heavily peated spirit, essentially tasted like mezcal, and then with a nice big scoop of Mackey's vanilla ice cream on top.
I'm so hungry right now.
I like doing things like that. I think that there are lots of stereotypes, lots of things that we need to fight, in the whiskey industry. Not we need to fight, but
No, it's too late. You've made this a call to arms. I'm ready for action.
Can you put a Rage Against the Machine song behind me as I'm saying this?
Note to Joshua, please insert aggressive music over the back of this. Yeah, we've done that. Can you hear it?
Can you... Fight the system. No, I'm joking. But as stereotypes go, I think we need to start drinking whiskeys and pair it with food without feeling we're doing something wrong. And I love to do that with pastries. Right. I'm actually planning to do, this is going to sound super Italian, I'm sorry, this is very cliche, but I'm doing a tasting for the Whiskey Festival in Milano in December, and I want to do a whiskey and panettone pairings. So, because Milan is the place, right? For panettone. Yeah. So I want to get a lot of different flavored ones and pair it with the whole Arran range. Because imagine just for a second, guys, an Arran 10-year-old.
Okay, right, we're setting the scene here. Where are we?
You're in Italy.
We're in Italy, okay.
You're in Milan. Possibly city center. You're one of those balconies looking down at the Duomo of Milano, so there's tourists everywhere. It's a December date, but it's warm because it's Italy, so it's 25 degrees.
Oh my God, that's a Scottish summer.
That's an Italian winter, so yeah. So it's 25 degrees, and it's it's chilly, but it's not cold. You're enjoying the sun. You can feel the sun on your skin.
Also, never had that in Scotland. I'm so excited for my winter suntan that I got in Italy. Okay, yeah.
It's crispy.
I'm so into this, yeah.
It's crispy there, and there's people around you, all having coffees and Aperol Spritz, and they all look beautiful because it's Milan.
Because it's Milan.
Everybody just looks like it's coming out of a modeling shoot or something. It's just everything is just too pretty. And you're sitting down at this beautiful marbly table, and out comes a glass of Arran 10-year-old and a slice of warm, just baked panettone made with orange and candied peel, covered in dark chocolate, maybe with a little, I don't know, hazelnut, maybe not a praline, sort of cover on top, and just sugar dust, and you're having a bite of the panettone, and then you have a little bit of sip of whiskey, and your life just makes sense. And all of a sudden you're just questioning, what are you doing with your life? Why are you not moving to Italy? Why are you just not enjoying the life? And just move to Italy and enjoy Arran whiskey on a balcony in Milan. Just do it now. Book your tickets.
As endorsed by the Arran Tourist Board. Oh, I am so hungry now, and so pale and so unattractive, and just everything that really beautiful Milan
I didn't mean it.
Mirage.
That's not the reaction that I wanted, but
and I'm heartbroken. That's what it is. I'm heartbroken because I am not living in Milan right now, living on panettone.
You can do that at home. I just like to treat myself, and I just like to convince people to drink whiskey with like other treats, you know,
very
with other
successfully,
things,
because
you
right
know?
now there's probably no one listening to us. We're just talking on a podcast. People are rushing to the shop to find a panettone.
How many people are Googling panettone right now? I'm just going to panettone and where to get it. Panettone
just
near me.
type into the internet fancy Italian cake bread, and that'll do the job. You can get those really big ones. I like the ones that are like panettone and pandoro that have got chocolate in them that you can slice. They're a confusing prospect because you will need to Google them because some of them are huge.
Yeah.
I never know which way to cut it. Like down like a wedding cake or like across like a tree. Mm-hmm. And then I sort of get, until you make it small enough to put in a toaster.
All I'm saying is, I'm pretty sure you're all surrounded by beautiful bakeries. It doesn't have to be panettone, but like if you want to treat yourself, like, you know, on a afternoon tea, sort of like, you know, like a nice dessert, just pair a good whiskey with a good dessert, and people will just like, for even people that don't like whiskey will still fall in love with it because it works. I tried it many times and it works all the time.
I'm trying to think of like a Scottish equivalent of a panettone. What can I bring you? Like
I think recently I had strawberry macarons and Arran amarone for dessert after, like, you know, dinner with friends, and that worked too. I got my boyfriend into drinking whiskey by pairing it with donuts, and
which is actually how you and I met.
Exactly.
I'm not your boyfriend. You and I met because
revelation.
in a previous existence, you and I were planning a whiskey and donuts tasting, which again is an interesting shout out because, of course, the lovely Johnny, who helps us make things look pretty on the internet, Johnny Baldray of Whiskey and Donuts in the US, does it very proficiently, and he makes very pretty looking tastings and makes me want to be in California eating donuts and drinking whiskey. But we talked about that with for those of you who are coming to Glasgow, the small village, on your way to Arran, obviously you all need to pick up some Tantrum donuts. To take with you. Again, we're not being sponsored by them. I wish I'm mentioning them like as if I've got a tray of them to eat on my Milan balcony. But they do some really fantastic ones. So you and I had met to discuss the possibility of pairing different donuts and whiskey together. Something which I am still toying with the idea of. I would quite like to do something. Or like you and I have looked at those crazy stuffed cookies.
Also, there's plenty of places in Glasgow these days. Good. My Instagram is, I mean, apart from the fact that like my phone listens to me, so my Instagram is full of like biscuits, cookies, like pastries. All the bakeries in Glasgow and nearby are like on my Instagram right now. I'm not saying that I don't like it. I mean, I love it, but
I think it's easier to pair with nice, because you can work with the sweet side of whiskey. I think much more easily than you can the savoury side. For me, it's quite challenging. As a mega cheese nerd, I would love to do more cheese and whiskey, but I personally find it quite hard to match up. Cheese can have quite strong flavours, and whiskey can be not only strong in terms of the alcohol in it, but the flavours that you get. So I find it a more challenging match to make. Because I think I've said in previous places, you know, if I had my time over again, I think I'd probably be a cheesemonger because I just love it. And I used to do a lot of tastings where I did with a friend who was a cheesemonger. We did booze and cheese tastings together. Gin and cheese works surprisingly well. The first time he came to me with a proposition that we should do gin and cheese, I was like, well, that's going to be me and you in a room. No one will come. We'll have 6 bottles of gin and 5 kilos of cheese that we need to eat. I mean, like, to me, that sounds like a great night in, but probably not in a fancy venue. But it was great. They were always the most popular. So shows what I know, right?
So from now on, this is just the beginning of a series of episodes that Jess and I are going to do, and in which we're just going to pair all the whiskeys that we drink with different pastries, cheese, chocolate, donuts, and everything else in between.
I mean, that is essentially my Instagram.
Is it?
All my life.
Then we'll just turn it into a podcast.
We should make it into, as we were, that again.
Send us a message and tell us if you like to hear stuff like that. Thank you very much.
As an audio format of asking people like, wow, this looks like a really great, this looks like such a great cheese. Look at us eating them.
And then do you want to hear a lot of
that what's that called? ASMR? That could be the second half of the podcast. It'd just be people listening to me and you eat cheese.
No way.
Don't know.
Niche, but maybe you never know.
Niche, but it's the internet, right? I mean, people will go for anything. So yeah, the idea of pairing food and whiskey, I think, is really cool because I think it makes it maybe less invasive. I know a lot of people get, in your younger misspent youth, you may have had whiskey or stronger spirits and kind of get fixed in your head that, you had a bad experience and so therefore you stay clear of them for the rest of your days, which if that works for you. And so I think, if you're putting it with a donut or cheese or something else, then maybe it's a bit less terrifying a prospect. And I love the idea of being able to invite people into trying a food and something to make it, I'm basically slowly trying to convert everybody to being a whiskey drinker. I'm eradicating all the people in my life who don't drink whiskey because I don't have time for that.
I am right there with you, don't worry. Every single thing that I do that involves friends that don't drink whiskey, there's always going to be like a whiskey mini event going on like on the side just to try and convince people to get.
Yeah, you should see when Chris and I go to parties, we bring like basically a full bar. It's embarrassing, clanking in. In fact, actually one of the pubs here in Glasgow, one of my favourite barmen, as I walk in, he greets me. He's like, "Oh, it's the whiskey lassie."
That is so nice.
I think he means it from a place of love. I hope he's not like it's a cry for help. She needs. That's how he shouts to me. So I think that's quite funny. But he, that's how he greets me. But so my point was, I think it's really nice to be able to introduce people like that. And then once we've got everybody drinking whiskey, then what?
We got a world of friends to share whiskeys with. I mean, I don't
is
know
that the
if
ultimate
you
aim of
agree.
this? To make friends?
I mean, that's my aim. I'm a people pleaser, so I want everybody to be my friend. But I know this is gonna sound very, very cliche, but like the people that I met through the years, thanks to my job, people in the whiskey community are possibly like the loveliest people I've ever met in my life. And some of my best friends today are, people that I met through whiskey, and I absolutely love it. Now, I don't know how the other industries are. Maybe people say the same about the rum, the tequila, the wine industry. I don't know how the others are, but I can just say that, if it wasn't for the whiskey community, we wouldn't be here right now talking to each other either. So
that's very true.
I just love it.
Well, maybe we would be friends through some sort of lady boss breakfast.
But then, that happened maybe because,
it's definitely a whiskey thing. But that to me is one of the appealing things of the industry. I think it's such a personal thing that, whether it's the people who are working in production, like you get to interact with the guys at production a lot, like the stories and the heritage and sometimes unrecordable things they tell you. I really love that. But I also love being face to face with punters, even if it's, a whiskey festival or getting rolled out like at parties, being like, she's the whiskey woman. A bit like a dancing monkey. That's always quite good fun too. I get asked far too often, "Oh, do you like whiskey then?" Every time I'm like, this would be a very, very difficult job if I didn't. Can you imagine if you didn't like whiskey doing what we do?
I every time I get that question, I'm just looking at people going, I would be so sad if I was just lying to people, just making things up every single day of my life for
I think that'd be quite a funny whiskey tasting to be in. Can you imagine sat watching somebody being like, "Okay, tell me about the whiskey," and then watching as they kind of wince and go, "Yeah, really, there's lots of lovely flavours in this."
Hi, my name is Mariella. I work for Arran Distillers, and I've been sober for.
Okay, wrong. That's you're definitely in the wrong place in that case.
No, but I'm just. I think we do what we do out of love, and I think if we do share that passion and that love for the whiskeys because we love it ourselves. So
it definitely comes through talking to you. I love seeing what you've come up with next, and even just the way when we've been talking about flavors and tastes and stuff, the way you've just kind of run through all these. Profiles on what you could do with some of the liquids. It's really infectious to watch. And that infectious sounds like a dirty word there. I didn't mean it like that. It's very, it's lovely to watch. I love watching people who are passionate about what they do. It doesn't have to be whiskey, you could be really into collecting stamps or going to historic museums. I just love seeing people who are really involved and feel for a subject. I love watching how that's communicated.
I am 100% right there with you. I think because I am so passionate about one single thing, I just love to see other people that I may be passionate about, a completely different thing. And then I just want to just hear them talking to me about it for like, hours. And I'm like, yeah, I want to listen to that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. So if you weren't doing whiskey, what would you...
Ooh,
if money's no object.
Okay, this is going to sound very wild. I'm sorry. But
I'm ready.
Do I have like all the money in the world? Like sort of scenario?
It's not a...
Am I like filthy rich?
I'm not like funding whatever outrageous sentence is going to come out your mouth.
No, I talked to my boyfriend a lot about this. I wish we could live in a world like almost like, Renaissance time, in which I will found a patron that will like, just sponsor me to like learn every single musical instrument, like, just be an artist essentially. Like, like today I want to paint, tomorrow I want to wood carve, the day after I want to learn how to play the violin, and all I want to do is just learn everything that ever comes to mind, like until I die. Like I just want to learn.
This is a really
everything.
busy schedule, like lots of people when you ask them, they're like, I'd just live somewhere on a desert island, or I would be in the sun. You've just filled yourself with like a full week of intensive. Next week you're learning kendo, and then you're going to become a master skydiver and
I want to do everything. I feel like my brain doesn't stop. I've been called an earthquake like before. It's like I have one of those brains that unfortunately I cannot stay still for like 5-10 minutes. Yeah. Like I need to work. Like my brain needs to work like constantly. But I love to learn, and I love to learn like all sorts of different things. So I love to have like a billion hobbies, but not one of them is like my only hobby, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I just would like to live in a world where I don't actually have to work, but my work is just learn.
Like a scholar.
Yeah.
That sounds great fun.
Let's make it happen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. So I'll put a link in the bottom for the crowdfunding on Fund Mariella as a Scholar for Life. Hashtag Scholar for Life.
Next thing I'm doing is pottery. Then we're going to learn how to make cheese. That's what we said.
Yeah.
I'm embroidering at the moment, just for fun.
I tried to learn knitting. I am a pretty sweary person, and it is the singularly most swear-inducing activity. It's not soothing for me at all. It's infuriating.
Wow.
It's not a ladylike pastime for me. I'd be better.
Doesn't work for you.
I'd be better at like shot put or something, something building stone walls.
If you start swearing too much, I think it's not the right hobby for you. No.
Yeah, it was also that I felt like my blood pressure was rising an awful lot while I was doing it. It's not. Whiskey's much more soothing experience for me, learning about everything I can and like learning about different spirits. I think is really fun. I'm really getting into rums and just learning all the different processes that it's kind of recognizable. I like that a lot of the drinks industry is transposable. I suppose the basics are you're basically taking some ingredients, there's a process, and there's a hopefully consumable liquid out the other end. It's really interesting to me watching all the different kind of processes for like, how rum is sort of similar but not, and like if you're in a rum distillery you can whiskey, you can recognize the equipment in front of you, but there's obviously nuances to how all of them work, so not quite the same.
It's a completely different story. I love that. I remember learning about whiskey the first time and just being fascinating, but the whole thing. And then if you think that like, I also like how, I don't want to use the word terroir, but like how
too late
I've used that, but how every spirit in every country, it depends on like the culture, like the people, everything, it's just so, as you said, nuanced. If we're talking about wine in Italy, or we're talking about like, wine in France, or like rum in Jamaica, rum in the Martinique, Scotch, in the Scotch whiskey in Scotland, or like, it just, every story is like, there are similarities, but it's just so different because of the passion and the culture of the people that tell that story, which I love that. That's another nice learning experience.
See, it's not just... See, there you go. Although I'm sure the listeners would agree, it's not just about the drinking. I think everybody thinks that because I work in a drinks industry, I spend my whole day drinking. The truth is a lot less glamorous. It involves a lot of paperwork and emails. But obviously that's not the bit I'm going to share on Instagram. Like, nobody wants to see me shouting at my emails.
I would love to take... one day when I'll be brave enough to do it, I'll start taking photos of the non-glamorous life of a brand ambassador when I'm like in bed still and it's like, 2 p.m. and I'm still sending emails that I started at 8, but because I have so much to do, I'm still like, in my pajamas sending emails, and it's not looking pretty, like for anybody, right?
Yeah.
Especially not for me, but because there's so much work to do, you're like, I need to organize this now. So
Yeah, absolutely.
there's a lot of background work for those beautiful photos to show up on your Instagram. Do not worry.
They don't just appear.
Don't
Okay,
just
well,
appear.
how about we head towards what is a adjacent exit? So
Ooh.
I think we've had a really nice little ramble chat. I've stolen that from someone else, but I like the idea of a ramble chat, that we've had a lovely chat. And we have discussed some very exciting things about lag and about Locranza, and you have made us all move to Milan, so thanks for that.
Damn it, that's not what I wanted to do. Move to Arran, move to Scotland instead. Come see us on Arran.
Yeah, we didn't paint as an attractive, midge-infested, sideways rain, grey, miserly.
Who's talking? What?
Like a day in Scotland. When I think about it, you advertise Scottish weather. There's midges.
Don't you know that Arran, it's always sunny? Like, I don't know if I ever told you that, but it never rains on Arran. Did you know?
Wow.
I'm joking, I'm lying. I'm totally lying there.
No, we're upselling. We can't outstrip Milan now.
Milan is
sunny.
pretty, but it doesn't have the whiskey, the people, and everything else that Arran has to offer. So yes, do go to Milan because it's very pretty and nice.
And it will make you appreciate your rain more.
But
Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. It rains in Milan too. Don't worry, it's still northern Italy.
Yeah.
But no, I mean my last sentence is, do come see us on Arran. I live here now. I live in Scotland, and I love Arran. Rain or shine, it doesn't matter. If it rains, even better, because you'll make your drums in the visitor center even.
We'll stay inside and drink whiskeys instead.
So there's something to do. Scotland is ready for rain, so don't you worry. There's gonna be a lot of activities that you can do also when it rains.
We're prepared.
But do come see us, especially now that we have 2 distilleries that are so different from each other and producing whiskeys that are so different from each other. So
Which is very exciting.
So yeah.
So our usual get out of here question is, what has you excited for the future?
Thank you for telling me about this question, by the way, before we started this podcast, so that I could have prepared my answer.
No,
Thank you very much.
it has to be spontaneous. I don't want like a nice polished. I want you to think on your feet.
So
think
what
fast.
has you excited for?
The future, like maybe with the distilleries, with what's coming with lag, maybe Locranza, maybe just you and your international travels, locating new places for us to all move to. There is a lot
of stuff that excites me about the brand, especially now with parallel projects and things like that. But I'm going to be selfish and say the travel, because finally next year I get to travel again overseas. And
yeah, I feel like you're never at home.
Yeah, but mostly right now is in Europe. But I love traveling as much as I love whiskey. Maybe I love traveling more, actually. And I have to say that I am excited because next year I get to go to countries like Canada and New Zealand and South Korea and places that I've actually never been before. Mm-hmm. And I love that feeling of waking up in a place where you actually know absolutely anything about. Like, I just love that feeling of this is all new to discover. Again, the whole learning thing. So I'm going to be very selfish and say I'm actually just excited to talk to a market, crowd, people that drink whiskey, but in a country that I've actually never visited before, a culture that I don't know much about, and actually learn, from them. So I'm just excited about that.
I think that's a very fair answer. I'll let you have it. You're welcome. I think I'm the same. I'm looking forward to getting out and about and being elsewhere a little bit. Uh-huh. I've added that in even though you didn't ask me, but that's okay.
I didn't realize I was supposed to. I'm sorry.
I think it's the same. I think we have a very similar outlook there. The idea of getting to share drams with people all over the place is super exciting. And it's one of the reasons I came to do this job. So yeah, I think travel is a very exciting and I think probably quite a common response, I think, for people, especially brand ambassadors who've been living inside on Zoom. The idea of, we were all looking forward to that terror of waiting at the luggage collection point in an airport thinking, does my bag smell like whiskey? Was my hotel booked in the right place? Where does the taxi go? You know, like all those things that are really frustrating. They're going to be an exciting frustrated.
I miss that, to be honest. So I'm ready to have all those mini panic attacks again. Please, thank you very much. Or being fed food that I don't know. Like I don't know if it happened to you yet, but when you go to places and you just see food in front of you, but you don't know exactly what's inside. But because you're, distributor or like your company, like it just, you are a guest and you need to be respectful. So you have to eat whatever is given to you. And I'm like, not sure I like that, but thank you very much.
You're far too polite. So thank you very much for coming and hanging out with me and talking to me on the podcast. I am looking forward to scheduling part 2 of me and you walking around a distillery pointing at things saying, what's that? Because that's going to be a great listening experience.
That? No, I just burned my fingers. No, I can't
touch that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No,
yeah, maybe not that bit. But yeah, so thanks very much for coming and chatting to us. And if everybody wants to go away and find your lovely escapades as an Arran ambassador, they can check you out on the Instas where everything is delicious and email them paper free. And yeah. So
thank you. Thank you for having me, for having this different experience, different chat. I liked it. So thank you very much.
And I'm sure you will be coming live to some people all over the world soon.
Yeah, hopefully in the US as well, or just around the world. If you see me, come and talk to me about bakeries and, where are the closest donuts to me wherever I'm standing. So
that's the special skills you've got. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
As you rightly said, going into that interview, just listening to Jess and Mariella having that chitty chat was tremendous. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. I also have to say that all the talk of lag, anytime I hear lag mentioned, anytime I see lag being put on a store shelf, anytime I see it coming up at auction, I'm so excited to be able to put lag next to Arran / Lochranza, right? And you and I, when we were in Scotland at the beginning of October, actually tasted one of the lag releases, the only one that had been put out up to that point, which, if memory serves, was the full bourbon maturation lag release.
Yeah, there was bourbon, there was sherry, and Jeepers Creepers. There was another one that she said, and Rioja. That's right,
it's
Rioja.
The red wine,
yeah. And we tasted the bourbon one. They're all Firkin casks. That was an interesting point about those. So Firkin cask matured lags, and I thought it was and I hate using this as a caveat, but it was a 3-year-old whiskey, right? And for a 3-year-old spirit, it was remarkable because for my palate, it was doing a bit more than, you can see where it's going, right?
Oh, for sure.
Right? It was fully realized. It had wonderful complexity.
Do you know what they say in the warehouse when one of those casks reaches maturity?
What do they say?
They say, about Firkin time. It's not hurting anybody. That joke's not hurting anybody.
No, I know.
It's just a nice little throwaway joke.
Yeah, they look at their watch and they say, "Oof, it's a quarter cask 12. It's about Firkin time."
Wow, you wanted to and that one, all right? Okay.
Yeah,
yes and.
Yes,
you wanted
and.
to yes and it.
That's
you
right.
Wanted to yes and it.
That's right. It's my little improv going on there.
But the point that we're making is that it was delicious, and it's a dedicated peated spirit at a distillery that has a grass roof.
Does it have a grass roof?
Oh, you should see what they pay the guy to cut it.
Oh, like a living roof.
Exactly, yeah. Remember when they were installing it? They installed it kind of before a wind came in, and then it blew off. They had to reattach the roof because it blew off the first time.
See, when you first mentioned that, A, I'd forgotten about that. So therefore, B, I was picturing this distillery with like a thatched roof with that dry grass going on, but not a living roof.
I thought you were maybe thinking of it more underground, but then I would make a Wombles reference, and I don't think you get Wombles references, do you?
Weebles womble? Weebles do not womble. No, what's a womble?
Underground, overground, wombling free. We are the Wimbledon, common are we? Wombles of Wimbledon, common are we? Great show. All of us British kids watched that in the 80s. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that was a bit beyond me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good stuff. So the roof, the dedicated distillery, the peat production, as I think is now being clearly stated in the interview, has meant something for the Locranza distillery.
Yeah, it's interesting. They've stopped their peated production, and I think they actually did that back in 2017-ish, somewhere around there. But I'd forgotten about it. But if you put the puzzle pieces together, it really makes sense. Why have one distillery that's dedicated to peat and have another distillery that's doing a bit of both? Why not keep them fully separate, which they talk about in the distillery, right? They are two very separate things from the bottle, from the liquid to the bottle shape. Yeah, it was interesting, and it reminds me of distilleries like Glengarry that used to run peated spirit, and then in 95 famously stopped using peated malt. And that's happened with a few distilleries.
And what's the current rumour surrounding Glengarry? Actually, it's not even a rumour. What's the current fact around Glengarry?
I haven't heard that. Tell me.
Yeah, they've returned to some peated production.
Holy... I mean, I guess I should have known after you set it up like that. What could it be?
Yeah. They've gone back to growing tomatoes next to the still house. Like, wow.
They've decided to pronounce the distillery name the way everybody screws it up. They're now Glengarryock.
Yeah, they're now Old Meldrum. But it's kind of interesting what it means to your production and what it means to, your brands and how you've built.
Because it's identity, right? It's
right. Well, what does it mean to never have any peat running through the stills at Locranza? What does that mean for the spirit that, we've always talked about it. Who knows how apocryphal it is, but the peated spirit at any distillery who does non-peated and peated would run the peated right before the shutdown, the silent period. They'd thoroughly clean the stills. They'd leave them sitting. But when they came back and they started running the stills again, there was still a little bit of peat came through, and then it kind of got flushed out the system, and then we were back in. Like that little part of the process, if any part of that is more truth than mythology, that's gone. There are going to be casks of Locranza that don't have that quality anymore.
Oh, that sort of mid... That peat to non-peated,
that whisper,
that whisper, right? Which is something I always look for in Hazelburn bottlings, right? Sometimes you get Hazelburn, and it's clear they'd been running unpeated spirit for a while, and it's crisp and it's clean and it's fruity, and then you get those dirty, earthy Hazelburns that are like, yeah, they just got done running a bunch of long row, and now they're going with the Hazelburn.
It's so funny when we have these conversations that we're really talking about a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche. Like there's 5 people all going like, yeah, good point, well made. We will miss that, right? The rest of the whiskey drinking world is like, get over yourself.
45,000 other people are like,
Glug, glug.
But I'll tell you, it was, just to get back to the conversation, it was really brilliant having Jess at the helm there leading the conversation. It's clear she's a wonderful conversationalist. She asked some great questions that that were nerdy yet accessible to those who may not be on that same nerdy level that Jess and Mariella certainly are. And it's, I'm happy she has a recording device to be out there and having these conversations because they're fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing we've talked about previously, which is it's just nice to have another perspective. There's a way in which you and I would have had that conversation with Mariella that would have been remarkably different than how Jess had that conversation. And I think it's so nice to be able to hear that other perspective.
Yeah.
Right? How did the conversation go? They're also good friends, right? And they have lunch together, right? It's great to have that connection going on as well.
Yeah.
As the two of us saying, hey, lovely to meet you for the first time. Here's some questions we'd like to ask. I think it's great that type of variety, and like I've said, that different perspective is vital. And I love that we have Jess on our team. She's a good egg, as they say.
That she is. Yeah.
All the kids say it. Yo, you're a good egg. Is I think how they phrase it.
Jason, you and I have a bit of news to share. So much news, in fact. I feel it's kind of monumental. I feel it's monumental enough to bring out the Paperboy.
Extra, extra! Read all about it! Life story of Playboy Penny! Extra, extra! Extra, extra! Read all about it! Me and that Playboy...
What do you think just happened, Jason? What big thing just happened?
Did a plane come into the United States delivering bottles of Single Cask Nation to our warehouse?
That plane was holding 10 pallets worth of Single Cask Nation product.
That's a lot of whiskey.
And it's been delivered to our warehouse in San Francisco, to our friends at Impex Beverages. Mm-hmm. And we've got a bit of a combination here. We have 5 new Single Cask Nation retail bottlings. Right? Is that true? 5. It's just the 5. Well, it's 5, but one of them is kind of big, right? So we've got, here, you know what? I have a little list, and I'm going to read it to you, and I'm going to read it to our listeners. And mostly I'm bringing up the list because I've got a small brain. And I wasn't able to retain everything, Jason, because I'm not a perfect man, Jason. I know you like to think I am. But anyway, here we are. So we have 5 new bottlings. We have some whiskey, single malt. We've got some grain, and we have a little bit of rum. So let me start with the rum, actually. So we've got an 11-year-old cask of Darsa rum, which is Guatemalan rum. And it's so funny. Have you talked about the Darsa to anyone?
I have not.
You have not. Nope. So I have. And when I mention Darsa, I get the same response that you gave, Guatemala. Yeah. And then I say to them, have you ever heard of Zacapa? Like, of course I've heard of Zacapa. And I say, well, this is actually a single cask of Zacapa, basically, because Darsa makes for Zacapa. So there you go. 11-year-old
really
single cask.
Really resonates when you say that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it connects the dots. Then for our grain, we have a 34-year-old Invergordon, distilled February 1988. And that is from a refill sherry hogshead. I should point out the Darsa is from a first fill bourbon barrel. The Invergordon's a refill sherry hoggy. And then for the next 2, we actually took 2 casks and married them together for the next 2 bottlings. So we have an Inchgauer, 10 years old. One of the casks was a bourbon barrel, and which I think was refill. And then the sherry hogshead that was married with it was first a bourbon barrel, and then it was transferred into a sherry hoggy. So you've got finished sherry going on with that.
Yeah, that re-racked sample was
my
crazy.
Gosh.
That was a lot of sherry presence, a lot of wood presence, and it sits beautifully with the refill bourbon from the other cask.
And that's what I was going to say. I feel as if that fit. Those casks were so active, it overtook the spirit a little bit. And so that refill bourbon allows the spirit to shine while still retaining that sherry presence.
Oh, without any shadow of doubt, yeah. It's definitely a flavor marriage. It felt, not that it's to this extent, but it felt a little bit like having the opportunity to blend. Where it was, okay, what's this refill bourbon flavor profile doing? What's this re-racked sherry profile doing? And what if these notes spoke to those notes and these qualities complemented these other qualities and brought those two casks together? But that was really quite magical. I almost feel like it's a little bit like the conversation we had with our Copperworks release and our Balcones release, where each of those was 2 casks. And we thought that the combination of the two did more than the individual casks by themselves.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of single casks out there simply are not pulling their weight. Yep. There's a reason why distilleries, brands like Johnny Walker and you name it, have blenders, master blenders, because they're dealing with components. They're not dealing with a fully realized spirit. And I'm not comparing us to, the Kirsty McCallums of the world or the Jim Beverages of the world, but just pointing out that that's whiskey, right? Like most whiskey needs to be married together to create
100%.
Something. Yeah.
100%. And I do think with the rise of independence and the rise of single casks at natural cask strength, we've taken something that used to be a fringe aspect of the industry and have made it much more mainstream. But, we talk to producers. Producers are responsible for putting out brands, lines, lineups, standard bottlings. And then they like to have a single cask that kind of shines, that does something different, right?
Yep.
And yet, if you're an independent, for most of us, your business plan is all single casks at cask strength.
Yep.
It's a very different remit. And I think there's a reason you and I have kind of started to sniff around blending and combinations and kind of saying, what do we have with flavors?
Yeah.
What can we do with flavors? It's kind of an interesting kind of place we've gone to. But I'll say more about that in just a second, because I know where this list goes.
All right. And then speaking of marrying casks, we have our Kalila. This one I'm so excited about. I mean, I'm excited about all of them. But these are 2 refill bourbon barrels that are 7 years old. A 7-year-old Kalila. It's just young Isla, right? And young Isla spirit. It's what I know it's what you're about. It's quite often what I'm about, though I do like to dip my toe in some older Isla too. But
it is so what I'm about.
Yeah.
So what I'm about.
And then finally, we have our Wolf Island Take 2, our follow-up to the original. And there's been a nice little adjustment to the label that's quite obvious, and people will see and hopefully get a bit of a kick out of. And just as with the previous one, this is a marriage of 6 casks, all first fill bourbon, 5 of them being unpeated spirit, 1 of them being lightly peated spirit. It's from the same distillery that we can't even joke about. We can't be cheeky. It's just an island distillery that isn't Isla. That's the one bit of news that I've told people, that it's not Isla.
Yeah, it's one of those funny things, though, because when people hear island, they want it to be Isla.
They want it to be Isla, yeah.
And I don't want to stand in their way. If they want it to be Isla, Go crazy. Fill your boots.
Yeah.
Right? I will also say this. For anybody who tasted that first release
Yeah.
and thought it tasted like Bruichladdich,
Yeah.
I hear them 100%. And I think that's where it's safe to say, well, it's not an Islay, but I see what you're saying and I see what you're getting there,
Yeah.
and I like that you're getting what you're getting. But there are also people that I've said that to, and they've been like, no, you're just saying that, right? I know this is a Bruichladdich.
See, I don't like it when people are wrong, and when they're like, oh, this is Bruichladdich, or oh, this is insert distillery here. That the mental image of that classic stick figure comment with the woman saying, whatever the guy's name is, Charles, I don't remember what his name is. Charles, you come into bed, he's like, nope, someone's wrong on the internet, and he's got to correct it, right? So when people throw out Islay, I know we can't mention the distillery. I just want to kind of give them a bone, just something, anything.
No, I'm like, gosh, if you want to buy that and drink it and be convinced it's Bruichladdich, like, yeah, fill your boots. You got me. Listen, that first version, we've talked about this. We put out single casks. We don't often have enough volume to warrant putting anything into competition. But, we purposely made a large batch of the first Wolf Island. We purposely made a large batch of the second Wolf Island. The first one went into competition and got 93 points.
Right.
That's... Again, it comes back to what we were just saying in this segment. It's okay if you don't know the distillery. It's enough that you taste it and you like it, you want to keep drinking it, and you want to share it with your friends. And the fact that it gives us an opportunity to talk about our collaboration with the Water of Life film and what we're doing with Greg and with Trevor and Fons and the gang over there, right? It's just another excellent, fun, worthwhile collaboration for us that has a damn tasty whiskey at the heart of it. I'm super excited for Take Two. I really am, because I don't want to say we took a chance with the first version, but we put together 1,600 bottles in a batch with no distillery name attached to it at 48 point something percent.
48.
What's the number? There you go, 48.8. Right? So we took all these chances, and then it landed and it resonated.
Yeah.
And that's all we can hope for something we are building. And so to then say, okay, you like the first version, let's come back with another one that's a kissing cousin, a very close relative to that first one, and enjoy this one as well.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of it. And I really hope it resonates the same way the first one did, and people support it the same way they supported the first one.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of all of these. Really quickly, one thing before I mention the online things, I didn't give the prices, so let me do this. So the Darsa 11-year-old rum, first fill burp. Yep.
Remembering that these are just suggested, your mileage may vary in your particular state, your particular store.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? This is known as the RRP, which is recommended retail price. So yes, it could be more, it could be less. So the Darsa 11-year-old first fill bourbon barrel, $120. The Invergordon 34-year-old refill sherry hoggy, $280. Two really good prices coming out the gate, given what they are. The Invergordon 10-year-old marriage of sherry and bourbon cask, $110. The 7-year-old Kalila, a clean $80. And
boom! Pardon me?
That's right, sir.
2 digits on that one? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then you forgot about that, didn't you?
Well, because when you mentioned it earlier, I was like, I got to get me one of those bottles. I wonder if it's 100 or 110. And now you just threw out 80. And I'm like, I got to get 2 of those bottles. Okay.
And then finally, the Wolf Island, $80 is the recommended price, just as with the last one. The last thing that I wanted to bring up with regards to this shipment is an online offering that we have, this is the first time we've ever done a bottling like this before. So you and I bought a couple of French brandy casks. This is French brandy from the Cognac region of France, but then matured.
Nobody can see you winking, Joshua. Nobody can see that.
Well, because it wasn't fully matured in cognac, and because it wasn't bottled in cognac, we can't call it cognac. So we're calling it French brandy. So the distillate is from December 1989, specifically December 31st, 1989. 32 years old, and the spirit actually spent its last 9 months in PX sherry cask, Pedro Jimenez, first fill, Spanish
Instead of
oak.
a finish, I would call that a pregnant pause. It had a pregnant pause in PX.
Oh,
9 months.
Oh, yeah. Look at that, Jason. Yeah. So, that's great. But specifically Spanish oak, which I was kind of excited for. And this just back to my very brief mention of Kirsty McCallum. It was the use of PX sherry from a previous position she had. She told us a story. There was some spirit that had a bit of dryness to it, a bit more than she liked. And so she ended up putting that spirit into PX. And we did the same. Cognac, let me say that differently. French brandy tends to be a much, much drier spirit, a bit too dry for my liking, typically. And so it was spot on for the spirit, but we just wanted to add a touch of juiciness, a bit more fruitiness to it overall. So a bit of a pregnant pause, 9 months in PX to sort of round out some of that dryness. But yeah, 32-year-old French brandy for a cool $195 on the website.
Yeah, good age on that.
It's not bad. Yeah, 32 years. I'll take it.
So that won't be on the website until January.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing to point out. So appreciate you highlighting that bit. Before we get out of the news, there was something you wanted to add to this. So go ahead.
Yes.
Right.
On a very weekly basis, and by weekly I mean almost daily, our very own Elijah pings me to say, are we selling the glassware? Are we selling the glassware? Are we selling the glassware? And we have not made mention of it on the podcast. But as of the release of this episode, if you go to singlecasknation.com to our front page where we keep all of our bottles, hopefully you've been there previously, you will also see that we're selling glassies, Single Cask Nation branded glassies. You can purchase a pair. You can purchase a 6-pack. I guess you could purchase 2 pairs if you were really feeling up to it.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Right? But we sell them in blocks of 2 and 6. And so I recommend getting over there, get your purchase made. As much as our shipping of spirit has closed for 2022, our shipping of glassware has not. So these will be able to go out the door shortly after you place your order. Joshua is looking at me as if I'm going to name prices. And
I am.
Yeah, I've no idea.
Well, as you're looking for those prices, one thing I wanted to point out to those listening, most whiskey glasses, right? They're the Glencairns, that tulip-shaped glass with a little nub on the bottom for you to hold on to, which are beautiful glasses. Jason and I use them all the time. But since the start of the Jubilee back in 2013 up until today, we've used a Glencairn-like glass that doesn't have that little pedestal it sits on. It just sits nice and roundly in the hand. And it's the Urban Bar glass. And it's one we've been using for years and we're very happy with. And so it will stand out compared to your other glasses.
Well, and it is the one that we select all our casks using.
All the time, yep.
It's the standard bearer when, as we've discussed in this news segment, we bring 2 casks together or 6 casks together. Mm-hmm. This is the way we experience the whiskey. So if it's of interest to you, a pair will be $24, 6 will be $60, and it'll ship direct to your doorstep for a $15 flat rate shipping fee.
Wow. So you get a bit of a deal with 6 glasses.
That's how we work it. This reflects the deal that we started the company with. The prices are a little higher, but it's coming right to you.
Oh, there you go.
Right to your door. And we're sitting here in 2022, the end of 2022, which is remarkable.
Amazing. Yeah.
So there you go. Glassware. Yeah. Please go buy your glassware. I guess we could ship it globally. We wouldn't be able to charge you $15 to ship it globally. We'd have a little email exchange to say, hey, thanks for your order. This is what it would cost. We would not add any profits to shipping it to your doorstep around the globe. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But if you are in the United States, it will be $15 flat rate shipping fee to your doorstep. If you do add in a bottle, because we're always telling people, stretch your $15 flat rate shipping fee. If you do want to add in a bottle or more, that bottle will ship the beginning of January.
But
your
that.
Glassware will ship immediately.
I love the flex room you gave with
yes.
beginning
Always,
of
Joshua.
January.
Always, Joshua. Always.
All right. I think, Jason, that is now all the news fit to print.
Yeah, fun stuff.
What else do we have going on?
Well, we were again planning to close out the Blind Barrels blind tasting, but my palate is still absolutely shot. It even has me a little nervous about our end of year review episode where we dram and chat and pick some favorites. I'm really hoping my palate's back by then.
Zinc, elderberry, vitamin C,
Xanax, heroin,
KY jelly, the whole thing.
Oh my God, I can't get any more KY jelly up my nostril. It's unbelievable. You should see what I'm blowing out my nose. Anyway, that's too much. So we're pivoting again. I've had this little topic, area, issue. It's not an issue in the slightest. But back in February, I saw a little something on the Whiskey Fun website. Don't open the Whiskey Fun website to February. I'm watching you, Hatton.
My hands are up.
And I've had this little bit of fun up my sleeve, and I think getting to it in December before I have to carry it in my brain into 2023 is a very good idea. So, what I saw on Whiskey Fun...
You saw this in February of 2022 and decided to bring it to me in December of 2022. Okay. Okay.
I've had it up my sleeve that entire time.
Okay.
And finally, here we are. So... It's an antique whiskey advertisement.
Oh, okay.
And I think the language in it is absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
And so on one hand, I simply just wanted to discuss the ad with you. Mm-hmm. And the second aspect is I wanted to see if you could guess the whiskey from the ad.
Okay.
It's, as we've been discussing on and off for a while now, it is verbose.
So do I get any hints through the reading, or are there any hints?
We're about to find out.
Okay. All right. You go ahead. Now,
just like we normally do, whenever the name itself is mentioned, I will not read that name out loud. Okay. But I will pretty much read everything else.
Okay.
So that the headline on the ad is not a headache in a gallon. When I saw that back in February, I knew I wanted to use this in the podcast.
Not
a headache in a gallon.
In a gallon. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so then it's then got a gentleman holding out his glass, and he's just in silhouette with a white collar and a white shirt cuff coming out from his jacket.
Okay, so a little fanciness, okay.
Right, and then has a picture of the bottle with the brand name on it.
Okay.
And then it has its verbiage. So it says, while the law's delays will not permit an immediate answer being given to the legal question, what is whiskey? The public are gradually but surely answering the question for themselves. And in that paragraph, what is whiskey is enlarged and in bold and in quotation marks.
Wow, they were not fooling around. Yeah.
No messing. So then it has another paragraph. So much has been written by pot still advocates against the product of the patent still that a section of the public had almost begun to believe that some great fraud was being perpetrated, of which they were the unwilling victims.
Wow. This verbiage is great. Okay.
So it then continues. So this is the same paragraph. It then continues. Since the introduction of blank, and blank is gargantuan. It covers the width of the column. It is taller. It is bold. Like, when you look at this ad, it's the first thing you see is the product. So,
okay.
Since the introduction of blank, the public have been quickly undeceived. And the appreciation, it's plural. And the appreciations with which blank has been received as a self-whiskey unmixed with any pot still whiskey whatever clearly demonstrates that the days of heavy oily whiskies have gone forever.
Wow. Oh, that's so there are some clues there. Okay. Yeah.
Let me close out the paragraph. There's one more sentence in this paragraph. If you have not yet tried blank, do so, and you will be delighted with its peculiar delicacy and charming individual flavor.
Wow. Okay. So it's not blended. There's no pot still distillate going on there. So it's a single grain.
And there's all this stuff about the consumer being deceived, right? The pot still producer would have the consumer believe they're being deceived by the patent still producer. There's just a little bit more verbiage at the bottom. It's actually in small print, and it's not quite as easy to read here. Ask your wine merchant for it. Price 42 shillings a case, or 3 and 6 a bottle. Every bottle of blank is guaranteed fully matured, and I'm trying to read the lettering here, and so have been, and to have been in wood at least 7 years. blank is not a pot still, but a pure patent still Scotch grain whiskey.
As soon as you said grain, as you were reading it, because there's only one grain distillery that they've ever done ads about, and they've had a few different spellings of the distillery itself. All right, so that's between you and me.
Oh, okay. No, keep that in. That's good. I like that.
The distillery that I'm thinking about, you and I have bottled at least one cask from them. The last one will have been a 26-year-old from a sherry butt. In fact, we weren't the only independent bottler to bottle 25, 26-year-old from this distillery, because a rake of those casks were made available to bottlers.
Okay.
I am going to say that the distillery in question, the brand in question, the bottle in question is Cameron Bridge, sometimes called Cameron Brig. Sometimes one word, sometimes two words. But that was definitely a bottling of its own throughout history. It was available, then it wasn't, then it was, then it wasn't. Am I correct? I can't think of any other grain distillery that has been a brand.
You know how early in the podcast you said you hate it when people are wrong?
Oh no, am I wrong?
You're wrong.
I'm wrong? How am I wrong? It can't be wrong.
And you know how you hate it? I love it. I'm absolutely dining out on this right now.
Okay. Put me out of my misery. What is it? Like, come on. There's no way I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
So this is separate here.
All right.
This is not from the ad. This is from the interwebs. The blank distillery dates back to the early 1800s. It was opened in 1836 in a village that shares its name near Alloa. Here, it quietly produced its whiskies, becoming one of the first members of the Distillers Company Limited in 1913. Oh no, sorry, that's a period. Becoming one of the first members of the Distillers Company Limited. In 1913, a fire destroyed much of the distillery, forcing it to close until 1938. So my belief then would be this ad is coming out after that 1938.
Sure.
Let me see what I can continue here. This bit of information is coming from Master of Malt, just to give them credit here.
Okay.
Blank produced grain whiskey, a lot of which made its way into blends, though you can still find independent bottlings of their single grain if you're lucky. Parenthetical comment, it's fantastic stuff, says Master of Malt. The distillery was closed in 1993 by its owner, UDV.
Okay, then it's obviously not Cameron Bridge. What was closed? Because gosh, darn it. So Cameron Bridge, Carsbridge, Invergordon, North British. Port Dundas, but Port Dundas was closed in 2010. Closed in 93. Would that be Garden?
I also just did a Google search.
Yeah.
And we have bottled from this distillery.
Okay, so it's not Garn Heath. Strathclyde? No. Strathclyde's still around.
I'm looking at when our cask was from now. Our cask was September 1988. 28 years in a refill ex-bourbon barrel. Finished for 6 months in a first fill Muscatel sherry barrique.
Cambus. Oh, wow. Cambus. Oh, that was such a brilliant whiskey, too. I was so proud of that cask, Jason.
Yeah. There's one, I as we've talked about, I used Wine Searcher, and one store in America is showing this Cambus. The Spirited Gourmet in Belmont, Massachusetts, has at least one bottle for $160. A 28-year-old grain whiskey finished in Muscatel sherry barrique, $160. Like, boom. We bottled it April of 2017.
And I know of a distributor who still has a case in their warehouse.
Interesting. Interesting. So there you go. Boom. I did.
Wow. I didn't know that Cambus had its own bottling. Like Cameron Bridge famously had their own bottlings. Or, well, now you have me questioning that. If they were independently bottled Cameron Bridge whiskeys that had very official-looking labels, now I've got a bit of investigative work to be doing, Jason.
There you go. I'm doing my own investigative work right now, which is fucking British money before the metric system. Like, what is 42 shillings? 1 shilling used to be, I want to say 5 pence when I was but a boy, because the 5 pence coin would say it on it. Not that we actually used shillings when I was a boy. I see how you're looking at me. And so if 1 shilling was 5 pence, then it's 42. So about £2. So we're looking at about £2 for a bottle of Cambus when this advert was published.
How many crowns is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. That was a case. £2 for the case.
£2 for the case, because it was four and something for a bottle.
3 and 6. Yeah,
3 and 6. I thought it was 2 and 20 blackbirds. I think that was the price of it. It was 2.20 blackbirds.
Yeah, if you have never baked your Cambus in a pie, you are missing out. You must make sure this happens.
I thought
that was a fun one and so right in the middle of the page it says, since the introduction of Cambus pure patent still Scotch grain whiskey, and then it goes on, the public have been quickly undeceived, and the appreciations with which Cambus has been received as a self whiskey. I love the use of self whiskey. Yeah. Unmixed with any pot still whiskey, whatever.
What interesting verbiage, though. You know that if you're drinking something that has been blended, then you're being deceived, right? It was a shot across the bow of pot still whiskey being sold as is and being put into blends. It sounds.
I think it's a play back on the pot still producers saying this is the one true whiskey, right?
So there was
if
that
your
back
whiskey
and forth.
hasn't gone through the pot still, the patent still, again, right? That's just a commodity product, right? That's what's going into blends. Then Cambus turn this around and say, well, there's a reason you got to put your pot still with the grain whiskey. It's the grain whiskey that's making it good, right?
Right,
and that's
yes.
But imagine getting to the point where you say that the success of Cambus clearly demonstrates that the days of heavy oily whiskies have gone forever, right? And to me, it's the same claim that was being made around the hoped for rise of American grain whiskey in the 80s, this light whiskey, right? That's what the consumer wants. That's what the consumer's looking for. Consumers not looking for heavy. They're not looking for oily. They're not looking for flavorful. They're looking for a nice, clean, quiet mixer. Obviously in here, Cambus are saying we don't even need to be mixed. You can just drink Cambus straight.
Yeah.
You know, at least with the light whiskey, it was the highball, the ice, the mixer, the competitor to vodka. Here's Cambus saying, we're the light, delicate spirit that you want to drink by itself. Don't get mixed up with those heavy, oily, pot still whiskies. It's great, absolutely great. I thought it was a really fun thing to bring into the podcast. Have you do the guessing game and have the listeners play along, but also I love these little touches of history. When we've dipped back into the Michael Jackson from 1989. Bookending today's episode with Michael Jackson references. When you go into that 1989, you get that little bit of history. Yeah. It's not this history, right? Yeah. And I apologize, I don't know the date for this advert. But it's old and not a headache in a gallon, right? The idea that you could be drinking this good quality, patent, still grain whiskey, not be getting hangovers from the heavy, oily stuff, right?
Which wasn't what gave people headaches anyway. I always thought it was the sugary, the liqueurs, anyway.
Not a headache in a gallon. Hashtag, please drink your gallon responsibly.
Yeah, right. If you're drinking a gallon of any alcohol, you've got more problems than a headache.
You got 99 problems and a headache ain't one of them.
All right, Jason, I think that may be the end of this episode.
I think that checks out.
Now, we did get some mail come in. I wanted to let you know, we got an email in from Philippe Panavong. I'm not going to read it here, but he gave some suggestions for our end-of-year podcast. And I thought that they were good suggestions that we will incorporate into that episode. And I figured, why not read it in part to help launch that episode? So
yeah, excellent. Yeah, I would also love for listeners to drop a note and just say, what was your favorite bottling of 2022? See if we can get a few different names thrown around in that episode. Give listeners, little internal recommendations for things to go look for. It doesn't have to be a single cask nation. Can be a shelf bought item, an official bottling from a distillery. Maybe a distillery only offer. Whatever it is, drop us a note. I was going to tread on your toes because I'm so used to doing it in extra, but they could email us, Joshua.
If you stop talking, then I can start to deliver that. You're just not giving me a single window.
Just give me a date. Just give me the date, and I'll stop talking. Just give me the date.
So if people want,
give me the email address,
Jason. If people want to give us their top whiskeys or their top anything, questions at One Nation Under Whiskey.
Preferably whiskeys.
Well, it could be anything, Jason.
No, please, no, just top whiskeys.
And anything. Just the whiskey? All right. Questions at onenationunderwhiskey.com. No E in whiskey. You can also email us info at singlecasknation.com, and we'll get to either of those inboxes. If you do want to get those suggestions in, please do so before December 28th. Actually, maybe before Christmas. Let's say that. Let's do it before Christmas time, because our end of year show, our end of year episode, is on December 28th. So get us your suggestions by the 25th, and we'll do our best to include them into the episode. And now, officially, it's still not come to a close.
You normally do your round of thanks.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, and you haven't done one.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
We've said adieu twice. There's no round of thanks.
Just because I'm a Jew doesn't mean... So listen,
yes.
Sincere thanks to Jess, to our very own Jess Lomas, to Mariella Romano, of course, to all our friends at Arran Distillers.
Indeed.
To you, Jason, to our listeners. And you know what? We don't say this enough, but they've always been such a great help to us. Our friends at Impacts who help us get our bottlings out there onto store shelves, and who really walk the hard miles to help us get our brand known. So it's special thanks to them as well.
Yep.
And now can I say adieu?
You may.
Adieu. Goodbye, Jason.
I've already gone.
Well, I'm gonna toast to you. Cheers.
Clang, clang, clang goes the trolley.